So for system of equations, there are three different types of solutions you can get. So the first one is independent, and this one, the lines have different slopes. The lines intersect in only one spot, and there's only one solution. So an example of this could be like this. So they only intercept right there. A dependent solution has the same slope and intercept. It's the same line, and there's infinite solutions. So an example of this is just the exact same line. So they'd be the exact same line. And then there's inconsistent, which is the same slope, different intercepts, and they're parallel lines, which means there are no solutions at all. So an example of this would be that. So in the first example, it's just a basic example to show how elimination works. So we have both equations, 2x plus 3y equals 15 and x minus 3y equals 3. So for step 1, we need to look to see if there are two coefficients that are the same. And as you can see, y has the same coefficient of 3, so we don't need to do any multiplication. So now we move on to step 2, which is adding or subtracting. And in this example, we are going to add to eliminate the variable of y. So now on to step 3, we're going to solve the equation. So 2x plus x equals 3x, and these just eliminate each other. And 15 plus 3 equals 18. So now we're going to get x by itself by dividing by 3. So x equals 6. So now we move on to step 4, which is you plug in the variable to solve for the other variable. In this instance, we're solving for y now. And you could choose either equations. Yeah, they both work, but I'm going to choose the second one in this case, which is x minus 3y equals 3. So now you're just going to plug in 6 for x, and then you're going to have to solve for y, so we're going to subtract by 6, which gives you negative 3, and then you're going to divide by negative 3, which gives you y equals 1. So now we have our answers, and we just need to put it in correct form. And then that is your answer for example 1. Example 2 is a little bit more of a complicated example. So the two equations are 1.5x plus 2y equals 22 and 2.5x minus 5y equals negative 25. So step 1, you have to find the coefficients if they have any of the same. And in this case, they do not, so we're going to have to multiply. And when you multiply, you want to multiply to get at least one same coefficient in each equation. So in this case, we're going to multiply the top equation by 5 and the bottom equation by 2. So this will give you 7.5x plus 10y equals 100. And then the bottom one will be 5x minus 10y equals negative 50. So now we move on to step 2, which is either adding or subtracting. In this case, we're going to add to eliminate the y variable again. So 7.5x plus 5x equals 12.5x. And these just eliminate each other. And 100 plus negative 50 equals 50. So now we are going to solve for x. So we're going to divide by 12.5 on each side, which gives you x equals 4. And now we move on to step 4, which is plugging in the x value. And in this example, I'm going to use the equation 1.5x plus 2y equals 20. So now we're just going to plug in 4, which is 1.5 times 4. And now we're just going to solve the equation. So this gives you 6, and everything else is the same. Sorry. And then we're going to subtract 6 from both sides, which equals 2y equals 14. Now we got to divide by 2, which gives you y equals 7. So your answer is 7. So this one's a more complex one because it is a word problem, so you have to make the equations yourself. So first we need to find the most important information. So the most important informations, I'm going to read it and then we'll annotate it. So Kylie and Reed went to an arcade where the machines took tokens. Kylie played 8 games of skee-ball and 10 games of pinball, using a total of 56 tokens. So some important details are 8 games of skee-ball and 10 games of pinball and 56 tokens. At the same time, Reed played 4 games of skee-ball and 7 games of pinball, using up to 36 tokens. So there's another important detail. Usually the numbers are the most important details in these word problems. So how many tokens does each game require? So before step 1, we need to make our equations. So you need to find which variable is which. So in this equation, we'll make x equal skee-ball, and we'll make y equal pinball. So now you know what variable is which. Now we need to make our equation. So we'll have an equation for Kylie and then one for Reed. So Kylie's equation would be 8x plus 10y equals 56. And then Reed's equation would be 4x plus 7y equals 36. So from there, we can go on to step 1, which is looking to see if the equations have the same coefficient, which they do not, so we're going to have to multiply. But in this example, we only need to multiply the bottom equation instead of both. So this one, we're going to multiply by 2. So then we'll get 8x plus 10y equals 56. Then we'll have 8x plus 14y equals 72. So now from there, we can move on to step 2, which is figuring out if we need to subtract or add. And in this case, we're actually going to subtract this time to eliminate the x variable. So these will eliminate each other. So 10y minus 14y equals -4. And 56 minus 72 equals -16. I'm sorry, there's a y here. So now we're going to divide by -4 on both sides, which gives you y equals 4. And now we're going to move on to step 4, which is just plugging in the variable to find the other variable. And in this case, we're going to use the top equation, which is 8x plus 10y equals 56. And this time we're going to plug in the y because that's the value we know. So we'll have 8x plus 10 times 4 equals 56. So 10 times 4 is 40. Now all we have to do is subtract 40 from both sides, which gives us 8x equals 16. And then you'll divide by 8 on both sides, and that gives you x equals 2. And now we need to put that in coordinate formation. So make sure that you put the x and the y in the correct spots, even though we solved them in a different way. So it'd be 2 and 4. And that's your answer for this exam.